It's May 9th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with President Yoon Suk-yeol's upcoming briefing to the nation. In the coming hour, the South Korean leader will deliver a live message on the directions of policies he will pursue over the next 3 years. There will also be an hour-long Q&A session. U.S. President Joe Biden says his country will not supply bombs and artillery shells that Israel can use to conduct a full-scale offensive on Rafah. A comment that was made after confirming a delay in ammunition shipments to Israel. The Olympic flame for Paris 2024 has arrived in Marseille, signaling the start of a day of celebrations as the prologue to the Olympic torch relay. Tomorrow, May 10th, marks a full 2 years of the Yoon administration, and President Yoon Suk-yeol will be live briefing the nation on what the people should expect for the remaining 3 years. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
As President Yoon Suk-yeol prepares for his first live press conference in 21 months on Thursday, there are two questions he's most anticipated to face. One about the death of a young Marine, and one about First Lady Kim Gun-hee. The Democratic Party of Korea pushed through a special probe bill to investigate government interference in the probe of a Marine's death during last year's flood rescue operations. The top office suggested vetoing the bill, especially with the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials already on the case. As for the First Lady, the prosecution recently opened an investigation after she accepted a luxury bag in 2022 as a gift. President Yoon has recently vowed to address these issues himself and not his aides.
사법 리스크가 있다면은 제가 해야 될 문제이지, 제 문제를 또 저에 대해서 뭐 제기된 게 있다면 제가 설명하고 풀어야지 민정수석이 할 일은 저는 아니라고 생각합니다.
While these two issues may take all the headlines, with an hour set for the Q&A session, there will be many more.
Before the press conference, the president will first explain the government's policy direction and progress over the past 2 years through a video message from the office, and will also discuss the plans for national governance over the next 3 years.
In fact, the message Yoon will have on doctors as the collective action prolongs will be a key issue as well. In addition, he's likely to address 3 of his other reformation plans: the pension system, labor, and education, along with diplomatic issues and inflation. President Yoon Suk-yeol hasn't had any official engagements in the 3 days leading up to the press conference on Thursday, seemingly in full prep mode. An official said the president asked his aides to prepare to focus on the questions that the public would really be curious about. The press conference comes following the ruling PPP's crushing defeat in the general election in April, and as President Yoon vowed to enhance communication with the public. He's met reporters in person and briefly took questions on multiple occasions since then as well. In the meantime, the DP called for the president to use this opportunity to approve the 250,000 won, or around $180 cash handout that it's pushing for, and accept the Marine probe.
I have high expectations. I hope that effective measures for national governance reform will be put in place.
The ruling People Power Party's interim leader Hwang Woo-yeol said in an interview with a local radio station that this will be an opportunity for President Yoon to get closer to the public, and Yoon's honest answers would dispel any of the rumors that surround him. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
It's been almost 3 months since the trainee doctors began their mass walkout. And to cope with a possible shortage of new doctors next year, the government plans to allow foreign licensed doctors to provide medical services here in Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung has the details.
The medical crisis is growing as the collective walkout by trainee doctors and leaves of absence taken by medical students has lasted for almost 3 months. The medical authorities are concerned that there will be a shortage of new doctors next year, as there won't be enough to meet the current annual quota of 3,058 doctors per year graduating from medical schools. Also, junior trainee doctors won't be able to take specialist exams the following year if they are absent for more than 3 months. The authorities said around May 20th as the deadline for these doctors to return to their hospitals. Within the emergency response system, doctors with foreign licenses will be able to provide medical services here with the approval from the Health Ministry. But this will be limited to when the healthcare alert level reaches serious as it is now due to the walkout. The Health Ministry gave official notice of a revision to the medical law on Wednesday, stating this was to address the shortage of doctors that is creating a healthcare gap. It added that the move was to protect the health and lives of people as the dispute over increasing the medical school enrollment quota continues to escalate. The ministry will accept opinions on the revision up until May 20th, while an exact implementation date has yet to be determined. Meanwhile, the academic board at Busan National University, 320 kilometers south of Seoul in Busan, decided not to revise its internal regulations on increasing its medical school quota. The board said that, as there was no social consensus regarding the increase, it would keep its number of new students at the current level. The Education Ministry expressed regret over this, as the majority of university medical schools had already completed changes to their regulations.
While other universities have either completed or are smoothly progressing with a revision of their regulations, the ministry regrets the situation at Busan National University. The Education Ministry urges the university to complete the regulatory revision process, following its demand for an increase in medical school enrollment.
The ministry warned that if the university fails to revise its regulations, it could face a suspension from medical school admissions in 2025. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Apple is finally jumping on the AI bandwagon with a brand new iPad Pro with a new chip for artificial intelligence. Now, will its ambitious latest model allow the tech giant to catch up in the global AI race? We're joined by Professor Yang Hee-dong this morning. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Apple is definitely now considered a front-runner in the AI race compared to other global competitors that have actively showcased their own AI models. Why such a late entry to the AI competition?
Well, we can think about the 5 major reasons for the very belated effort of the Apple regarding the AI. The first one is Apple, in terms of their sales breakdown, Apple is just a hardware company. As of last year, 70% of their revenue came from the sales of the hardware devices, such as iPhone, Mac computer, and a tablet. I mean, among them, 60% of the sales came from iPhone, the single item, and 20% came from services. So that means Apple may not feel any need to diversify their revenue sources into other areas, such as the AI. Mm-hmm. And second reason is they invest a lot for autonomous vehicle, even though they end up with the giving up on that project. That made a very critical impact for their R&D effort for the past 5 or 6 years. Number 3, their ecosystem is very, very exclusive. That means they may be let of very diversified data set that may train their AI engines. And number 4, EU has declared the DMA, Digital Markets Act, that targets at platform companies on the name of gatekeepers to reduce their monopolistic power in the EU markets. And they picked up Apple, and they charged about over about $2 billion for their monopolistic abuse of power of the App Store, particularly for the music streaming services. And number 5, their market share in China has been declined within this year. At the moment, their ranking of iPhone in Chinese market is ranked number 4 after Vivo, Huawei, and Honor. So for all these reasons, they needed to accelerate their effort only for the iPhone and also hardware, because those hardware devices have taken up over 70% of the overall market, the revenue sources.
So it did have its good reasons on the late entry. Now, Professor Yang, let's talk about the new iPad Pro. It's revamped with this N4 chip wasn't the last chip M2 though.
Well, the M2 was released about a couple years ago, but now M4 is made of a 3-nanometer process. And their speed is very fascinating because the M4 chip can operate the one instruction of the computer chips over 38 trillion times per second. And this speed is about 1.5 times faster than the earlier version of M2. And even this chip is even faster than the M3 that they released last October for the notebook computer MacBook. And this is not all the story about M4 because M4 is major infrastructure where all the advanced AI services and application programs can run. For example, then in the last May 7th, the event of Get Loose, they also announced about the Apple Pencil Pro that you can use like a pencil, right, to write on the screen of the iPad. And also they released a new service called Logic Pro that may help edit the song for the musicians. They also released another service called Final Cut Pro for the movie makers. And also they announced that they will make a new LLM service running on all this iPad and on iPhone devices. They will release a new iPhone 16 later this year on top of the platform iOS 18. And there's a very strong suspicion that this iOS 18 will run on top of the AI chips. So even though the Apple has been very lazy on the AI effort for the past couple of years, but now they are speeding up the effort with a huge investment on AI because they believe that this is the future direction for the future progress.
Well, Professor Yang, what's interesting is that the launch of the new model did little to move Apple stock on Wednesday. And the question is, will the upgraded iPad Pro be a hit and take over the global tablet market? What do you think?
Well, many professionals have very positive expectations for the sales of iPad because for the past 5 quarters and the sales of iPad have been declined. But due to this very, streamlined and very strong equipment of the AI facilities, and many people believe that the functions and capabilities of iPad will improve significantly. Well, when it comes to the stock prices, I mean, many people suspect the impact of iPro because immediately after the announcement, the stock prices increased very marginally. But stock price is a reflection of the future expectations. So for the past 3 weeks, the stock price of Apple has increased by 10%. Even though the current price stays at the level of the early this year, but when it comes to the stock price movement for the past 3 weeks, I mean, this movement is not that bad. Of course, we are aware of a very negative aspect for the future stock prices because the problems lie in China and AI, as I already mentioned. But there are lots of very positive aspects for their future price increase. The first one is, they gave up their very too much investment on autonomous vehicles and switch all those efforts onto AI. And lots of Apple users are still stuck to the old models. All the models will be replaced with the new model released to be this late year with the iPhone 16 and the Magnificent 7, which are very big tech companies in the United States, such as NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, etc. All of them invest a lot on AI, and Apple will follow suit with the stock price of those Magnificent companies.
All right, Professor Yang, thank you so much for your analysis this morning. We appreciate it, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
U.S. President Joe Biden made it clear on Wednesday that no offensive U.S. weapons will be provided to Israel, which he acknowledged could be used against civilians in Gaza. Our Shin Se-byuk has the details.
U.S. President Joe Biden said the U.S. would not supply weapons to Israel, which it could use to attack Rafah. In an interview on Wednesday, Biden said that while Washington is still committed to Israel's defense, his administration was not going to supply weapons and artillery shells that would be used in Rafah. The move is a clear statement against Israel's recent ground operation in the southernmost city in the Gaza Strip. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, speaking before the Senate Appropriations Committee the same day, confirmed the temporary halt of the weapons shipments.
As we have assessed the situation, we paused one shipment of high payload munitions.
He stressed that Israel should not launch major attacks in Rafah without ensuring the protection and safety of civilians in the conflict zone. Secretary Austin also noted that a final decision on whether to proceed with the shipments has not yet been made. The weapons were reported to include 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs. This confirmation by a senior U.S. government official follows several reports of the temporary suspension amid disagreements over Israel's actions in Rafah and marks its first public acknowledgement of the decision. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller, in a briefing on Wednesday, also acknowledged the suspension in response to Washington's concerns of a major operation in Rafah by the Israeli military.
And we also have concerns about the impact of any potential operation on the delivery of humanitarian assistance. So we have paused one shipment of near-term assistance, and we are reviewing others.
The Biden administration's decision has reportedly prompted Israel to warn that it could endanger talks on hostage deals. According to U.S. media outlet Axios on Wednesday, senior Israeli officials have expressed deep frustration and dissatisfaction with the White House decision to delay the weapons shipments. Reports also suggest that Israel is outraged not only by the halt of the shipments, but also by the leak of disinformation to the press. Israel has also cautioned the U.S. that this decision might jeopardize efforts to negotiate a ceasefire and secure the release of the hostages. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Russia on Wednesday conducted large-scale strikes in Ukraine just a day before its Victory Day. Meanwhile, EU envoys have agreed to use windfall profits from Russian central bank assets frozen in the bloc for Ukraine's defense. Lee Seung-jae has more.
A day before Russia's Victory Day, celebrating the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in 1945, its military conducted its largest attack in weeks against Ukraine. The Russian military carried out massive attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure on Wednesday, using 55 missiles and 21 drones launched from either Russia or Russian-controlled areas. The attacks targeted power generation and transmission facilities in 6 regions of Ukraine. The overnight attacks resulted in at least 3 civilian casualties, as Russia's military continues its recent attempts to paralyze Ukraine's energy system. Meanwhile, ambassadors of EU member nations on Wednesday agreed to use windfall profits from Russian central bank assets frozen in the bloc to further aid Ukraine's defense. According to Reuters, citing EU diplomatic sources, the bloc will use some $300 billion of Russian financial assets that the G7 countries froze in 2022 over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Upon approval of its legal text, 90% of the proceeds will go into an EU-run fund for military aid for Ukraine, while the other 10% will support the war-torn country in other ways. The decision comes despite Russian officials last month threatening the West with a severe response and endless legal challenges if the frozen assets are touched. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
A recent survey found that Seoul citizens consider the Han River to be the representative landmark of the capital, while foreign residents voted for Gwanghwamun Square. The results of the 2023 Seoul survey were released on Thursday after questioning over 35,000 people in 20,000 households. Among Korean respondents, 48.3% chose the Han River as the capital's representative landmark. A separate survey of 2,500 foreign residents of Seoul showed that 45.9% chose Gwanghwamun Square. Now, when asked about the benefits of living in the capital, both surveys had convenient public transportation as the top reason.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in France, where the Olympic flame arrived on French soil on Wednesday, 79 days before the Paris 2024 Olympic Games opening ceremony. The Olympic flame safely reached the French port city of Marseille after a 12-day journey from Greece on board the Belém, a 128-year-old three-masted ship. French swimmer Florent Manadou, who won gold in the 2012 Olympic men's 50 meters freestyle, was given the honor of being the first torchbearer on French soil. Manadou then handed over the torch to Paralympic athlete Nantenon Keita, a 400 meters gold medalist at the 2016 Rio Games. Marseille-born rapper Jules then lit the cauldron in front of around 150,000 people, signaling the start of the Olympic torch relay celebrations, which will continue until the start of Paris Olympic Games on the 26th of July. A Boeing 767 cargo airplane landed at Istanbul airport on Wednesday without its front landing gear, dragging its nose on the tarmac. The Turkish Transport Ministry said authorities have launched an investigation while no casualties were reported. The FedEx Airlines cargo plane was doused with firefighting foam as it came to a halt on the runway after sparks and smoke were seen from the nose of the plane, dragging on the tarmac. The plane flew in from Paris and reportedly informed Istanbul Airport's control tower that its front landing gear had failed to open. The Turkish Transport Ministry said in a statement that the cargo aircraft landed with guidance from the control tower. FedEx said that it would provide additional information as it is available. The aircraft in the incident was less than 10 years old. Moving over to South Africa, rescue teams in the coastal city of George continued their search on Wednesday for some 40 construction workers missing after an apartment building under construction collapsed on Monday. According to the George municipality, of the 75 construction workers on site, 7 have been confirmed dead, while 16 of the 29 rescued from under the collapsed debris are in critical condition. 39 workers remained unaccounted for as of Wednesday morning, buried in the rubble of the 5-story building. More than 200 rescue personnel from disaster response teams from nearby cities and towns have been brought in to help the rescue efforts. Authorities have announced an investigation into the collapse. The Garrick Club, London's historic private members' club, voted to allow women to join for the first time since it was founded in 1831. Members of the all-male gentlemen's club reportedly voted on Tuesday on whether to allow women to join, and almost 60% of those present were in favor of doing so. The Garrick has caught the public's attention as its members are all prominent figures in society, including King Charles III, senior politicians, judges, journalists and actors. Previously, in 2015, a vote was held to consider the acceptance of female members, but it was rejected at the time. Women were only allowed to enter the club as guests and were denied full membership.
Good morning. While temperature swings continue today in most places, certain parts of the country are starting off the day in the single digits, and highs will rise rapidly to the 20s, going up 1 to 9 degrees higher than yesterday. And those in Gyeongju should notice gaps of nearly 20 degrees Celsius today. Sunny skies are expected nationwide with stronger UV rays for southern regions than Jeju Island. Have your sunglasses and a hat ready to protect yourself from the strong UV rays. The capital area will be as mild as yesterday at 21 degrees. Again, a big rise in highs for southern regions, topping out at 23 degrees in Gwangju this afternoon. Air quality will be decent nationwide. However, pollen allergy sufferers along the west coast may be in for a rough day, so be well prepared. Pleasant late spring weather is expected for Friday. That nationwide rain is in the forecast for this weekend. Then sunny and warm weather is in store for next week as roses start to bloom. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.